Welcome to ESG Insights, a limited podcast series brought to you by Michael Best. We'll be exploring the intersection of environmental, social, and governance issues and the legal landscape. I'm your host, Beth Prendergast, a partner at Michael Best.
Carrie, thanks for joining us today to talk about ESG in the benefits world. So you are a benefits attorney. Can you tell us what that means and what you do?
Absolutely. I have the pleasure of working with employers to either set up or help maintain and keep in compliance kind of the gamut of things other than cash compensation. So things like retirement plan benefits, health benefits, dental benefits, disability benefits, and then to the other side of the house, whether it's equity or equity compensation or deferred compensation, anything that is kind of outside of the normal cash compensation, I help folks set up and maintain compliance and occasionally terminate those kind of plans as well.
So we're here to talk about ESG. So can you tell me, what are you seeing employers integrate ESG into their benefits plan? How and what are you seeing?
Yeah, in the last handful of years, we've seen more and more discussion about how employers from their lens as an employer are reacting to setting ESG priorities and weaving those through kind of their, what we might call total rewards package. So whether that is how do we recruit folks showing that we are committed to ESG and to be showing that throughout the total rewards package, or whether it's responding to the requests of our employee populations. For example, in the midst of the George Floyd era, how do we show our commitment to social justice? How do we show what we're doing from a DEI standpoint? And how do we make that articulated across our benefits? The two most articulated items that I've seen at this point within the benefit space are responses to let me actually invest my own money in funds that are committed to ESG practice and principles. So for example, if we offer a 401k plan to our employee population, can we offer investment options beyond those that we would think of as a traditional investment, like a S&P 500 index fund, and instead offer the opportunity, if someone likes, to invest in ESG fund, a green fund, something that is committed to an ESG principle. The other one that we've seen articulated a lot is bonus programs. For example, if the company is committed to meeting certain goals within the ESG landscape, rewarding folks based on the achievement of those goals.
How and when should employers present their commitments to ESG to employees through these benefit offerings?
You know, that's been super interesting to watch people develop not only what their commitments to ESG are, but how they communicate those to their employees. The few ways I've seen it is we're doing a broader kind of strategic discussion around ESG principles. Maybe we have a strategic plan that will be rolled out over the next 3 to 5 years. And if that's part of it is commitment to attainment of various ESG goals, communicating it is part of that strategic goal setting. Alternatively, every year, for the most part, employees sign up for employee benefits. And that's a great opportunity to basically highlight changes or new commitments and new offerings. So, for example, if your 401k plan adds to its lineup a host of ESG funds, that would probably make sense to be rolled out during the annual open enrollment standpoint. If you're doing it in the bonus time, obviously, this is something we don't want to hit at the back end, but rather kind of as you tee up that performance period and look at what are the things and the metrics we're going to be striving for in the ESG space. So communicating around bonus time as well.
Right. So you're obviously seeing some movement in this space and seeing some employers including ESG in their benefits packages. And what are some of the positive outcomes that you're seeing for the companies that do include ESG in their benefits and the organization as a whole?
That's a great question. I think in the last handful of years, obviously, everyone's been talking about the Great Resignation and, quite frankly, the fact that employees have such a bigger pull and, quite frankly, a lot of leverage to demand certain actions of the employers. It's not just enough to say, hey, we have a great culture. hey, we have some of these other soft things like bring your pet to work. People want to know what's really going, things that matter to them, how the place they're going to work is actually committing to those things as well. So for example, rolling out a commitment to ESG and communicating that has helped folks recruit. If I can choose between two employers and one is kind of vanilla and the other has this very proactive ESG commitment, and that's important to me, I might go work there. And that's definitely been a recruiting tool and quite frankly, a retention tool in this era of never seen before inflation. There's only so much money we can throw at employees. And so what are the softer things that employers are looking to do to basically respond to where they want to meet their employees and how they can actually incentivize them to stay?
So obviously it can be a great tool, it sounds like, but there's, I imagine some costs and compliance that go along with that. What are some of the compliance issues that employers should be on the lookout as it relates to ESG plans?
Yeah, that one's tricky, and in particularly the retirement plan space. If we take a quick step back, retirement plans themselves, you don't have to offer one, right? That's the starting place. But if you do, that plan must comply with the rules of ERISA. And ERISA basically says there's a host of fiduciary rules, including that you have to basically offer a diversified group of investments in your plan, and the offerings that you make available have to be prudent. That prudent standard is litigated basically since ERISA was put in place in 1974 and will be litigated as long as ERISA is out there. And so in response to what is prudent, there's been some regulatory action from the Department of Labor to say how can and should ESG initiatives be permitted within the 401k and broader retirement plan landscape. That landscape has shifted, and without going into the weeds too much on how that looks, the reality is that certain employers have been somewhat hesitant in order to offer a broad range of ESG initiatives in their 401k plan because the regulatory landscape is not such that is gold stamped at this point as being okay. We're at a place where there's the latest guidance with the Biden administration is such that ESG initiatives are permitted, and some have read the guidance as even suggesting that ESG commitments should be considered, not maybe, but should be considered. But certainly, come our next presidential election, that pendulum can swing. And certainly there's a lot of employers who are saying, if I want to get into this space, I don't want to be pulling options out in 2 or 3 years if I'm in a totally different regulatory landscape. So being a little slower to move. I've heard a couple of the large 401k providers say that they have definitely made more ESG funds available on their platforms, but the utilization has been slower than they would have anticipated because of this kind of dynamic landscape there.
Interesting. So it sounds like there's some forward momentum in this space, but it's still slow because of these regulatory ambiguities.
Yeah, that's a fair statement. Quite frankly, because there are trillions and trillions of dollars in retirement plan and 401k plan assets, retirement plans are a huge target for class action lawsuits. And quite frankly, they've been attacked for not paying low enough fees on funds, not having adequate disclosure, and a whole host of other things. So some of the employers with very large 401k plans say, while we want to make this commitment, while we want to afford our employees the opportunity to invest in funds that are ascribing to ESG initiatives, at the same token, we don't want to put a target on our back that we are going to be stated as not being prudent in making available these funds. For example, if the funds themselves have a slightly higher expense ratio than your what I call traditional or vanilla investment options.
Are there ways that employers can mitigate that risk?
The short answer is there are. I mean, in the investment space and retirement plan world overall, there are lots of things that you can do to help mitigate risk in terms of lots of communication and offering a very broad array of investments. So for example, if you are an organization that is very committed to ESG commitments, perhaps your instinct might be, let's just make only kind of green funds or ESG focused funds available in our 401k plan. Perhaps a better strategy might be to add them as a complement to the traditional investment alternatives as opposed to a replacement. Things like that may reduce risk. Also, hiring a prudent independent investment manager or advisor can help reduce risk if you're getting kind of a lot of help from an expert in the space. That certainly will insulate you from challenge or from a class action lawsuit, but probably will reduce the risk there.
There's definitely benefits, sounds like, to making some investments in that kind of risk mitigation, but a company's got to be aware of what they're getting into, it sounds like, as well.
You summarized it accurately.
Where do you see ESG going, Carrie, in the benefits context, short term and long term, as we're watching this kind of momentum?
I think that utilization, for example, in the 401k space, at some point, there's just going to be a tipping. It's, for example, in crypto. We saw this kind of push to get crypto investments in 401k, and the regulatory response was, no, you can't do that. And there was such a big push from that specific industry that said, we're going to do it anyway. I think that there will be some folks on the ESG front that will say, we're going to do this anyway. This is such a core principle of who we are as an organization. This is of such paramount importance to our employee population that we're just going to go ahead and take the risk. So I think certainly in the 401k space, this is not going away. I think that we're just going to have that tipping point of having more folks be comfortable putting their toe into the water. And I think leaders like MasterCard, who said that our commitment to ESG is going to span across our annual bonus program, and every employee's bonus in some small part, is going to be attributable to whether we attain our ESG goals. I think there's going to be more and more movement, and we've definitely seen folks consider that to how do we best basically address our ESG needs and the demands of our employees in a way that kind of dovetails all of these things.
So cool. I can't wait to see where it goes.
Me too.
Thanks for sharing your insights on it.
Thanks so much.
And thanks for talking today.
My pleasure.
That's it for today's episode. Thanks for listening. To hear more episodes and catch up on the latest legal hot topics, please subscribe and check out our insights page at michaelbest.com. We'll be back soon with more insights on ESG and the legal landscape.